Ебать!
Ёб твою мать! Пизда, Боже, допоможи.
Well, hello, that's me again. Today is September 21st, 2025. It is the end, for some people, it's the end of the world as we knew it, which actually it's true, but actually it's the end of the weekend. For me, it's just morning of Sunday. And you know what? Some people sometimes accuse me, not without merit, make no mistake. I do not accept it 100%, but I would say they have the kernel of the common sense in this respect, that I am forced often to literally narrate or re-narrate essentially for you some headlines. And of course, we all remember those people who live at least in the United States and Canada, what wonderful thing have been in the Saturday Night Live, and the, you know what, headlines, well, that was actually Jay Leno, but I mean, the Weekend Update. This is what Weekend Update is, and guess what? If you go back to SNL or headlines of Jay Leno, guess what they were doing? They were literally discussing headlines and commenting on them. But I'm forced to do it once in a while, and not once in a while, often, in order for it to give you basically the lead on the information which is out there. And I have to admit that we live in the idiocracy today. So, and here it is. Mr. Trump. Oh yeah, there's not a day passes by that Mr. Trump doesn't basically comes up with something which is like, wow, you know, unbelievable, you know. So here we have this. You can obviously go to the Freedom Network, whatever the hell the name of this thing, but look at this. Trump says that bad things will happen if Afghanistan does not return Bagram Air Base. So, yes, you can go and take a look at the whatever the Freedom Network, and it's there. And so he threatens Afghanistan. If Afghanistan doesn't give Bagram Air Base back to those that built it, the United States of America, bad things are going to happen, Trump said in a Truth Social post. Okay, so you already know that Mr. Trump settled the conflict between Azerbaijan and Albania and between Zamunda and Wakanda, but now evidently, as it turned out, the Bagram Air Base, in accordance to him, was built by United States. Well, I mean, even the United States military news kind of contradict the President of the United States, and they give us a little bit of the, you know, heads up in terms of the first, the reason, rationale behind this idiotic statement, pardon my French, and basically what they say, this is from the US military news, that we're trying to get it back because they need things from us. We want that base back, Trump said during the joint press conference in Britain. But one of the reasons we want the base is, as you know, it's an hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. Okay. Trump didn't elaborate on what the Taliban might need from the United States, but yeah. And so even American military says that Bagram, which is about 40 kilometers north of Kabul, and was built by the Soviet Union in the 1950s, was the largest US base in Afghanistan and served as the Central Command during its 20-year occupation of the country. So, if you go to for example, the maps, Google Maps, and you look up Bagram, you will see yourself that even they have such landmarks on the Bagram base as the former Soviet air control towers. Yeah, it's just like. But yes, we know that Mr. Trump built everything. He defeated the invasion of the aliens from planet Zoltar, and you know, this famous war between Azerbaijan and Albania. So I don't know. the guy evidently doesn't understand that he embarrasses not only himself, he embarrasses the country, and even American military and people who are related to it, they contradict to him that, yeah, it was built by the Soviet Union in 1950s and was used in very active use throughout 1989 when the Soviet Union left Afghanistan. By the way, it left in the very orderly fashion and basically left the stable government until, of course, Yeltsin's clique of the criminals didn't abandon them, Najibullah's government. But yeah, Soviet Union wasn't defeated, it just left, and left the actually government which was in a good standing for a couple of years before the Soviet Union itself collapsed, but it had nothing to do with the actual Afghanistan, as many imbeciles from the so-called American scholarship academy try to actually present to you. It's not. It never had any real influence on what was happening in the Soviet Union. But we obviously remember how the United States actually was running away from Afghanistan. Now, for some reason, Mr. Trump thinks that he can get it back. Well, the response, yeah, it was pretty much immediate. So, to put it mildly, and Taliban and China, which was, of course, for some reason accused of housing themselves in Bagram, that Taliban and China reject Trump's bid to reestablish air base in Afghanistan. The US president has announced his intent to renew, we know that, and so China immediately answered that China respects Afghanistan's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. Afghanistan's future should rest in the hands of the Afghan people, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian said in response during a brief on Friday. Stirring up tensions and confrontation in the region will not be supported, but that's what the United States wants to. And Zakir Jalai, diplomat at the Afghan Foreign Ministry, said that the people of his country would reject the return of US troops. He argued that Kabul and Washington should pursue mutually respectful economic and political ties without the US maintaining any military presence in any part of Afghanistan. And what he also added, which is recorded, you can easily find it in the news, you can easily, just read it, and he said, if United States wants to invade again, yeah, we're going to be fighting another 20 years and we will defeat them. So, which is pretty much true. But then again, as I stated, one of the reasons why the United States cannot freaking win any war and doesn't understand Russia, it never really did, is because of this generation of those creeps from the, this academy, those so-called strategists from Washington, D.C., who are not really strategists, they don't know the first thing about warfare, is that for some reason, that was the idea behind the provocations in Maidan and all that, like Victoria Nuland, they're dumb, okay? Neocons always are dumb. Is that they for some reason thought that, okay, if we get Russians mired into some kind of the conflict, like Ukraine, oh my God, much bigger, much, huge scale compared to Afghanistan, then we somehow can topple the government and Russia will disintegrate. Those people, they operate like monkeys, because monkeys can recognize patterns, actually. So they recognize some patterns, they don't understand what is behind patterns. And as the result, for people who are militarily incompetent, American generals, for the most part, are military incompetent, especially in terms of strategy and even operational level things. So when you look at that, obviously they thought that, yeah, that was the idea. Let's apply this thing, because they believed that Soviet Union collapsed because of the Afghan war, which it did not. Obviously, they had the prostitute, this basically political whore, Gorbachev, who was saying anything just for him to have any kind of the payment, remuneration, remuneration or whatever, for whatever the BS he was spewing about the fate of the Soviet Union. But he was absolutely impotent and cowardly politician, and as a result, he lost the country. But obviously after that he would say anything just to basically leave the legacy, which he couldn't change. He is universally hated, despised, and I feel sorry for his other family who have to say that, yeah, we're related to Gorbachev. It's like, going now, which we'll be talking about in Germany, saying, oh yeah, we're related to Hitler. So And you probably know that Hitler's family, if you don't know, Hitler's family, and I feel sorry for those people too, they at some point of time, I don't remember, it was in 70s, I believe, all his relatives, they got together, I don't remember where, it was in the United States or in Germany somewhere, and they evidently settled or decided not to have children, any one of them, no children, period, because they didn't want this bloodline to continue. And I can only, how to say it, I feel sorry for those people, obviously, because most of them are just decent people. They just happen to be related to Hitler, to Schickel-Gruber family and whatever, So, and same here. And so what can I say? We'll talk about Germany, but the issue of the, oh, good Lord, why Trump wants that. He thinks that China has one place where it makes all those nuclear weapons. Well, obviously, Chinese nuclear program, essentially, is, how to say it, it's spread over several locations, obviously the Western China, and I believe it's Xinjiang province. I'm not Chinese, I don't speak Chinese. I probably just slaughtered the proper name of this province. It's the Western China, yes, it has about several dozens of kilometers of the common border with Afghanistan, and yeah, it's a pretty desert and mountainous, hilly area, and evidently they did test the nuclear weapons of China there, and for some reason Trump thinks that, yeah, this is where they, make, the weapons. Maybe, I don't know. Nobody knows it because it's obviously state secret. But in terms of this reaction of Trump, you might say, why Trump reacted in such stupid way. Evidently, this is the only way he reacts as of lately. Well, let us go to the Center for Strategic Center for Strategic and International Studies, and the reaction was, as you can see yourself, it was after the China's parading China's nuclear arsenal out of the shadows, and they write, this Center for Strategic and International Studies, I want to warn again, all those American think tanks, most of them are basically academic frauds, but once in a while they go out and get to the bottom of things in terms of providing some foundational information, if you wish. And so here is what is behind them. And as I state ad nauseam, United States is really good at projecting things and covering up the situation, which is very unpleasant for the United States. But here, these guys from the CSIS, they come out and say that US is losing the arms race. Wow! Well, let me put it this way. I'm on record since 2017, but not is losing. United States has lost the arms race, and especially nuclear and delivery systems. And here they talk about it. As you can see yourself, that the most significant takeaway from China's recent Victory Day parade is that China is expanding its strategic arsenal quantitatively and qualitatively. This mirrors a similar expansion of Russia's strategic arsenal over the past decade, particularly in dual-capable intermediate-range systems. Yeah, well, basically, if you look attentively today, even the non-strategic submarine, for example, like Yasin class Project 885 SSGN, which carries Zircon missiles, they are totally nuclear capable and you cannot stop them. Yeah, it can actually hover around anywhere, essentially, and can attack any kind of the installation along the coast or even deep into the continental United States. And then you have China, which is presenting some kind, there are some mock-ups, make no mistake, we know this for sure, but I mean, it shows that it also works on this. And so he talks about, it showcased a lot of nuclear platforms for only 600 warhead arsenal. China will likely have to restart fissile material production with new fast breeder reactors. Most likely, yes. Conversely, the United States is losing the nuclear arms race. The United States is just not embarking on a long-delayed nuclear modernization program. and will have to replace and update all three legs of its nuclear triad simultaneously. And that is, let me tell you, this is basically impossible. But progress is going slowly for Washington because of delays, lack of funding, and lack of political prioritization, such as the Sentinel program. Sentinel program, for all intents and purposes, is dead in the water. There are no money for it because essentially there was some technological mistake made in terms of thinking that you can use the silos for the Minuteman III missiles, and then suddenly it turned out you can't. You have to basically rebuild all 400 silos for Sentinel. And this is just colossal amount of money. While Washington moving slowly, China and Russia are building up their arsenals at an astounding rate. This is no longer a theoretical competition, it is an active contest. No, it's not an active contest. And that's what I'm trying to deliver basically at Conway for the last, many years now. Pardon my French, and so, yeah, it's lost. Delivery systems, this is the only thing which really matters in this type of the race, if you wish. And in terms of delivery systems, United States doesn't have hypersonic delivery systems. It will not have for a long time. And when it does, it's gonna face something which United States and evidently the NATO is just not capable of doing. The real effective anti-missile defense. Simple as that. And when you look at that and you compare things and you look at essentially, for example, the speed with which Russia develops it, both nuclear powered strategic missile submarines and all other kinds of the submarine force, or for that matter surface force, which carries basically weapon you cannot stop. And then you look at the indeed intermediate range things such as Oreshnik, and how do you even compete with that when you are behind? Not years, it's not just years, it's generation. And it needs to be repeated over and over again, what many people still do not understand. United States is not in the hypersonic race. It is and then, of course, when you look at, if you look attentively at the catastrophe with the Sentinel, well, they will probably extend some kind of the basically frontline service of the Minuteman III, which is the older missile. I mean, it's 1970s technology. They obviously updated and all that, but yeah, it's silo-based and it's not safe anymore, considering the fact that the United States realistically doesn't have anti-missile defense, which works. And you look attentively at Columbia-class submarine, and which carries same old, good old Trident 2 D5. And this is the older missile too. By the time Columbia is afloat by 2030, if, let's say this, what do you have? You have Trident 2. I mean, this is the same thing if Russians would be using the 1970s missiles on their submarines, while they're using modern day, extremely advanced Bulawak missiles with other iteration capable of carrying maneuvering hypersonic blocks on the intercontinental range. So it's not even there's nothing to compare, and that's the problem. Let alone with all those moves trying to build this B-21 the whatever bomber, stealth bomber. Yeah, this is 1990s, guys. It's all 1990s. And when I say that United States is stuck with its table of organization and equipment in 1990s, I literally mean it. That there was never any kind of movement beyond that. There were some updates, you know, some modernizations here and there. But realistically, United States today have their armed forces, which are from 1990s. Russians have armed forces, which are from 2025. China works really hard to have Russians help, especially in terms of the all kinds of the early warning systems and, of course, anti-missile air defense systems, which, you know, what can I say? So, and it is a contest between United States and China. In terms of Russia, there's no contest. It's over. And this is the reality, which even they, guys, you know, basically admit through the tease that, yeah, losing. It has already lost. And I understand it sounds horrible. And believe me, I know what it means, for example, especially for American cadre officers who served and have been honed and brought up in this environment of this American military mythology, that they are the finest force, to face this. I know how painful it is, but the problem is, even during the collapse of the Soviet Union, for example, we in the military environment, we knew that it was temporary. There is no way you can actually not recoil back, not bounce back. Can United States bounce? Well, here is the issue. United States already were lagging behind even Russia of the 1990s, after what Russians actually presented to the world, when all those shackles of secrecy have been dropped, and then suddenly Russians started to, because they had to, because the military industrial complex needed to survive, they started to rolling out missile and other weapon systems on the international market, which were like, wow. There you go. And it was 1990s. And what can I say? We'll see. I don't know. I do not want to sit here making all those forecasts, but one thing which I know, you cannot change cultural and technological DNA of the expeditionary force. This is what U.S. Army is. It is expeditionary force. It is the same if we're not talking about Michael Jackson, okay? But point is, if I want to become a Chinese, no matter how I try, I will not become Chinese. I'm Slav, Russian. My DNA is such. You cannot change my DNA. Maybe in the future, we will have this DNA engineering, and that's the whole other story. But the point is, you cannot change it. You have to think completely within totally different framework and mindset. And here we have the situation, is that, look at this, which explains why United States constantly loses its wars and why United States does not have experts in Russia. Nowhere near in American Academy, from all those Ivy League schools, from all those, let alone those think tanks, CIA, whatever. So none. They don't understand the first thing about Russia, and because they don't know the history. The point is. And so here's the demonstration to you why United States will never win the war. And it's obviously, you can scale down or you cannot scale up after Russia, but you can scale down it to pretty much anything. And if you take a look attentively at the Hill, this big time, DC rag. And so here we have this Alexander Motil, opinion contributor. He wrote it actually 5 days ago, but it is a remarkable thing. And here is the guy, and I will explain to you, these are the so-called Russian specialists in the United States. They are morons, and they are shysters. So look at this. He talks about the Bangladesh, Nepal, and Putin should look at Nepal and be afraid. Okay. Sure, and I don't know how Nepal and Russia even correlate in any meaningful way, but okay, so, and here's the guy, Alexander Motil. As you can see yourself by his name, he is either Ukrainian or Ukrainian Jew. We'll talk about it. So, Vladimir Putin must have been watching the riots in Nepal closely. No, he wasn't, but hasn't, but okay. And not just because they were a violent instance of people power, or as Putin would say, a colored revolution. Of far greater concern to Russia's illegitimate president is the mechanic of insurrections. Okay, so Mr. Motil, that's one of the, this is the Hill. These are the people who go into all kinds of the subcommittees in the Congress, and they spew this BS. They push their so-called academic papers, and they just settle accounts with Russia. And so Motil continues to explain that why Nepal and Russia are just almost the same thing, And so he talks about Russia. In retrospect, we can point to a variety of systemic problems or contradictions, as Putin, versed in Marxism and Leninism, might say, that seem to spell trouble. He tries to present that he knows what is going on in Russia. He doesn't. He's moron, as basically normal state for any kind of the PhD, moron with the PhD, per Mencken. And so, And he talks about that Putin knows that Lenin's newspaper was called Iskra or Spark. He also knows that Spark have played a critical role in many Eastern Europe's popular uprising. The guy is imbecile, basically. This is the delirium written by the moron with a PhD. So, Ukraine 2004 Orange Revolution was sparked by electoral shenanigans, as was the 2011 Russian Snow Revolution and Belarusian mass demonstrations in 2020 and 2021. Yeah, they were financed by Soros, but yeah, sure, of course. And so he talks about the Russia-Ukraine 2013 to 2014 revolution of dignity was sparked by a bloody government crackdown on students. Yes, it was actually false flag with the Georgian and other people, including from NATO, basically fomenting trouble and, well, yeah, killing those students. But Mr. Matil doesn't care. Look at his, oh my God, look at the guy's, you know what, impressive CV. So if you go, here it is. Alexander Matil, look at him. So, PhD in political science from Columbia University. That means he has no education whatsoever, and so it's Rutgers. But then again, American university, any average American university, in terms of humanities, it's pathetic. It's just basically the vocational school for the imbeciles who need some kind of the degree because it's easy. It really doesn't require any serious effort writing anything on the issue of this so-called political science. And as you can see yourself, he Masters of International Affairs, 1979, School of International Affairs, Columbia University. Columbia, Georgetown, all those Ivy League schools, you know, it's degree meals basically. And here it is. This is the, you know, what Matil. And if you go and take a look more actively about the guy, so he is American historian, political scientist, poet, writer, translator, and painter. He's also astronaut, yes, and he is also the commander of the armies of the North in the Roman Empire. So he's a resident of New York City. He's professor of political science. So this is pathetic. And Matil's parents immigrated as refugees from Western Ukraine. There you go. Everything you need to know. He's a Banderite, American elite, I mean, so-called, this already Anglo-Saxon. They love those Banderites, you know, they love Nazis as long as they, they provide all necessary, points for their narratives about Russia. Of course, themselves being morons, they don't understand that they drove the country, United States of America, into the ground, because that's the type of people they have as their, specialists, experts. But here it is, yes, you see, now we know that, that's how they think in State Department too. Vladimir Putin is illegitimate, but Vladimir Zelensky obviously is. So, and when you look at that, and this rag opinion, we do not necessarily share opinions, those disclaimers from all those rags. No, you do, because otherwise this delirium, this utter sheer garbage wouldn't have been published by you. But then again, who are those US mainstream media? They are human trash, basically, stuffed with people who have no consciousness, not a single, I shouldn't be go there, but majority of those so-called editors-in-chiefs and all in the US legacy media, they don't have consciousness, they don't have morality, they don't have anything. They are owned, their butts are owned by the owners of their basically media outlets, and they will print any kind of the garbage. I mean, and fact is, Vladimir Putin eats children on breakfast. Why not? So you think so? You think it's not possible? Oh, absolutely possible. So you do not understand that they're actually the great teacher for those people in New York Times, and apart from Soros, apart from the Israeli lobby, was obviously Goebbels, propagandist, but what can I say? United States doesn't really know what it is to fight Nazism to such a degree that your life depends on it. The United States never had a war on which was defensive in nature. So, and that brings us to this guy. Yeah, he is poor boy. Look at him. Yeah, he cries for that 6 million. We think that 6 million people still cannot even justify this figure, but yeah, there were millions of Jews killed. But look, yeah, he cries for them. He obviously doesn't cry for 27 million Soviet people, which Germany killed. But okay, what can I say? And here is the why he cries and behaves itself like he's, I mean, Germans, he's yours. You elected him. And so here Mr. Merz talks about that. In heated debate, Merz warns German prosperity under threat. I have news for Merz, and I have news for Germans. It's not under threat. It is going as we speak. And it's going to be gone fairly soon because Germany, with its heavily export-oriented economy, is pretty much done. And things will get much worse. And so Larry, our good friend Larry, basically posted a wonderful piece by one of the German intellectuals, and that the historical consciousness, what Germany could learn from Russia. And when talking about Merz, for example, it's obviously they talk about German society. I do not agree with the fact that Germans, as properly stated by Peter Hanseler, that they sleep while standing. No, it's acquiescence. It's not that Mr. Merz is not unpopular because of his warmongering. No, it has nothing to do with it. I mean, majority of, especially Western Germany population would mind if, you know what, Russia would be broken up and, you know what, the resources have been put on the service of, let's say, the same Germans. But the truth is, and as you can see yourself, he writes about it that it's acquiescence. Basically, they do not mind as long as it doesn't touch them. But that's the problem. None of them understand what real war is, including Bundeswehr. And so it depends on whom you ask. He talks about that if you ask to ask Friedrich Merz what he could learn from Russians, his answer will surely be nothing. Absolutely. Germans learned nothing. And this is not any kind of, thing which people say, oh yeah, you try to, generalize. No, Germans learned nothing, period. And so from the World War II. And so he shows that this intellectual dwarf, when he talks about intellectual dwarf, all academy, Western academy, all political class are intellectual dwarfs because the American or West European system of the what supposed to be preparing the political elites is completely broken. It's nothing more than degree meal for the imbeciles. And so when he talks about intellectual dwarf, people who are not intellectual dwarfs are not allowed anywhere, as I already stated, levels of power and influence, and that's the negative social demand. That's how it's called. The worst are being selected. And so when we look at what he says, sees himself as a new leader. He's not a leader, he's a coward, as pretty much most of those people from, including all those political parties in Germany, and that's the whole point. Germans elected them, and they will continue to elect them. So whenever we talk about as that they, sleep standing, no, they just don't care. And so here it is. He talks about that there is a deep-seated fear of war among parts of our... He is correct. Among parts. German population doesn't care for the most part. But I don't share it. But I can relate to it, says Mr. Merz. And this is the thing which is, of course, Germans do not want to look in the mirror. They are afraid, which tells you everything you need to know about this state of this nation. They cannot admit to themselves who they are, what they have become. And I understand those references to it. And indeed, German contribution to culture, global culture, is immense. From mathematics, engineering, to poets, thinkers, and, So, and yeah, he's correct, this author, that, yeah, he remembers this, that, yeah, Germany in the end was the land of poets, and which is true. Not anymore. We know what Germany is. It's basically yet another iteration of the playground of Satanists and warmongers, and another one being France. But France is pretty much, the fate of France is sealed, and so is the fate of Germany. So what do they have? They have only war in mind. The problem is there is not a single Bundeswehr series officer or French officer who have guts to stand up and say things. Plus, most of them, they do not understand what the modern war is. They believe all those fairy tales, which essentially Hollywood spent a lot of effort, and American historiography, which was run, especially military one, by Germans nonetheless, by Wehrmacht generals and SS generals. So that they whitewashed many things about Germans. And so what can I say? Good luck. Berlin obviously needs a reminder by having its stones rearranged again. This time it will be the final solution, sorry to say that, because Russians had it with Germany and those Germans who are a majority population. I mean, I don't know how large is majority, but it is majority. I know a little bit about statistics. I know a little bit about how I measure and gauge, so to speak, what is going on. And yeah, let you be not confused. Germans revolting and having low, basically, support for Merz has nothing to do with war. It has everything to do with the fact that, yeah, economically Germany is getting towards Weimar, and that's where it will end up. And if it decides to go again together with the unified Europe to the east, they will be turned into the, well, they could be turned into the basically nuclear wasteland, or just turned into the parking lot. And that probably will be the organic and inevitable and conclusion to the, well, basically 500 years of the Western civilization. Simple as that. And that's what I wanted to tell you today. And I understand many people will not like it, but too bad. I'm just saying things as I see them, and if you don't disagree, try to write a book where you try to basically prove something which is contrary to what I just said to you. Something tells me I'm correct, at least for the most part. Anyhow, this is what I needed to tell you today, guys. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. Those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee and two. So have a nice rest of the weekend, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.